Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Reviewing Comics with me, your host, Alexander Turbin. Today we're going to be looking at DP7 number 1, a new universe title. But before we get into that, I'd like to show you some of my own work. This is Random Access. This is issue number 29, and it's the one that's going out to all the patrons today, or tomorrow actually. I have them all printed. I just got to do the stickers and stuff and send them all out. You can get these at patreon.com/Alexander Turbin, or go to my website, alexanderturbin.com, and you can check all out the Random Access and Sirens and stuff. This is kind of a special month because this is my 100th page of Siren, and there's actually 5 full comic books that are going to be created by or have Siren as the main character. And there's actually, so there's 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So there's 10 comics of Random Access that are in the Siren universe. And like I said, you can check them out at alexanderturbin.com, or you can message me at alexturbin0441@yahoo.com, or you can message me at alexturbin0441 at Instagram. And these are all of the comics that feature Siren, and check them out. So DP7. But before we get into that, I'd like to remind you all to go and vote for who you think is your favorite artist between the 2 artists this week. It's Dale Keown versus Kevin Maguire. So far, Dale Keown is beating Kevin. I both think they're fantastic artists, and excuse me, but go off into the check out the poll, and oh, sorry, I'm dying here. Check out the poll and let everybody know who your favorite artist is between these 2. I'm really looking forward to the second round of artists and comparisons. I mean, it'll be Keown versus Silvestri if it keeps going. So that's going to be a fantastic one. All of these artists are fantastic, and just seeing who you like more and more, it gets more intense and more exciting and stuff, and that's really cool. I also picked up this weekend a John Constantine action figure, not a toy, action figure, and it's pretty cool. I really like it. I love John Constantine. He's one of my favorite characters. Of course, he's created by Alan Moore. But I'm thinking about having another episode or an episode. I don't know if Joe has any more toys, but an episode where I would show some of the action figures and stuff, more of the action figures that I have. And let me know if you guys would be into that, if you're into the action figures and stuff, or I should just keep it to the comic books. As you know, I sell stuff, so that will be on sale for $20, I think, on eBay or whatever. But we will see. So DP7, this is New Universe 1986, and it's written by Mark Grunwald with pencils by Paul Ryan, and inks by Romeo Tangal, letters by Phil Felix, colors by Paul Beckton, and Ralph Macchio, not the Karate Kid, is the editor, and Jim Shooter's editor-in-chief, which we don't care about the editor-in-chief until he does something really cool, like make the Dark Phoenix have to be killed. That's probably the single best thing that he ever did as the editor-in-chief, because it wasn't the New Universe. He had a great idea. They just did not... they didn't implement it well enough, and maybe they didn't... it just wasn't the right time, or I don't know. I don't know why it didn't take off, because they did have some cool comics, and DP7 was definitely one of them. It was in my mind, it was the flagship title of the New Universe. I think Starbrand was kind of the flagship, and I think probably, now that I think about it, that's the one that I like the most, because I love John Romita Jr.'s art. He's one of my favorite artists, top 3, top 4, top 5, something like that. and I really love his stuff. This is more story centric and character centric. Well, I don't know about character centric, but more story centric, because I'm not a huge Paul Ryan fan. I know he did a lot of stuff for Thor, I think, and I just really was not into it. He's a capable artist. He tells great stories. He's a great narrative artist, which is my 100% biggest thing that I need from a comic book artist is the comic books art. I definitely am less of the art and more in the comic books. So if an artist is good at telling a story and narrating the story, then I'll think that they're better than somebody who just has some flashy artwork and stuff. Ultimately, I would like it to be both. I would like them to have different art styles and stuff like that. That's really the best and most positive thing that I can think of for a comic book. But if I'm going to choose, if I have to choose one, I'm going to choose somebody that can tell a competent and really good story over somebody who's really, really great art. A good example of that is Chris Bacalo. When he was on Shade the Changing Man, I thought he did a fantastic job. I love that book, and I'm going to be I'm going to be reviewing that definitely at some point. But then when he started doing the X-Men, he kind of gave up on the storytelling aspect and was just into the really cool art that he was producing, the splash pages or the all of this stuff that he was doing. It looked really cool, but I couldn't tell what was going on in the comic book. And if I can't tell what's going on in the comic book and I get lost and even any of that stuff, then I'm just not going to enjoy it. And I'm just not going to have a good time. So comics are all about having a good time, if I think. So let's get into the story. Like most of the Marvel and DC and stuff that I go through, I'm not going to do my normal go through the comic and then go back and look at the writing and look at the art and all of that stuff, because these are professionally paid comic book artists and writers. They are, even if I'm not 100% on board with their art or their storytelling or their write or whatever, they're paid professionals. And so I don't know, maybe I should change my style and give them harsher critiques or whatever, but I don't think so. I'm just gonna go through the story and kind of talk about the art and the writing if I find something that I really don't like or do love or whatever like that. As for the art, I already know I'm not going to stop and talk about it, other than maybe there's a clarity in his art storytelling, which is one of the biggest things, as I said. So let's get into the story. It's DP7, Displaced Paranormal 7, and the first title is The Clinic. Again, I got to start titling my stories. I mean, in my head, they all have a title. I just don't write it down for each one of the random accesses that I produce. I don't write down the title of the story, even though I really totally should. It's a hospital and somebody's being wheeled in on the gurney. I do really like this shot here. It could have become more dynamic. As I said, Paul Ryan isn't really dynamic enough. He's just very stable. He's got a lot of really side shots, not a lot of close-ups, not a lot of he's a lot of panels, so it's a lot of story, and so it's just not as dynamic. This could have totally been a really dynamic, a three-dimensional kind of thing where you're gonna see this guy's head up close, and you're gonna see this guy, and he's gonna be mangled, or not mangled, but just not a boring laying down position. He could be like rah or something like that, and the doctors could be really a little bit more animated. I'm thinking it could have just used a little bit more animation. I probably get a little goofy sometimes in my artwork because I'm trying so hard to put in that emotion, that animation. It's like, so one of my teachers once said, the narrative art, you don't have sound, so you should really think of the comic book as a silent movie. And really, when you look at silent movies, their expressions, their features, their body movements, they're all really super exaggerated because you don't have that sound or anything like that. So he comes into the emergency room and he's taking a bunch of pills, and they're just kind of talking about who he is and what he's done and stuff. He wakes up, he starts throwing stuff around. He's like a huge guy, and they're talking about that, how he is such a big guy. And the doctor, one of the doctors, who to me looks like Donald Blake, but I guess he's not, has these arms, these astrophysical arms come out of his body and grab the big brute before he can hurt him, and he stabs him with a needle, and he calms him down and gets him all calm and stuff. Lots and lots of story, lots and lots of exposition, lots and lots of dialogue. That's what this book really is hugely about, because they're telling the introduction story, and they've got a lot of stuff to go through because there are 7 characters, and they're easing into it, which is really good. It's not like, here's your 7 characters, give us the backstory, blah 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 blah. They start out with the one character, and this is how he's introduced to the story, and then we've got the second character, the doctor, and he's introduced as a secondary character to the main character, and whether or not he's the main character in the story is irrelevant. He's the main character as far as being introduced the first time or whatever. So they're just lots of talking, and the doctor is talking about his how after the White event, because I guess they saw it on TV or whatever, and they're always talking about the White event, which is the creation of the new universe. And so he's talking to the guy, the muscle-bound guy, and saying, we know we contacted one of your friends and that you worked with, and she kept giving you food. She kept bringing you food, but you didn't want her to see you because you didn't want her to see this big hulking thing or whatever. And he's talking about how he was growing muscles upon muscles, and imagine doing 400 sit-up or 400 push-ups in like 2 seconds. That's what it feels like. He's in so much pain that all of his muscles and stuff were just contracting or extracting or whatever. The doctor goes to the head of the hospital, the administration, which is just like all my wife loves doctor shows. She loves The Pit. She loves ER. She loves Doc. She loves pretty much all hospital shows. So I end up watching these hospital shows, Grey's Anatomy and stuff like that. So there's always a confrontation or something between the doctors and the administration. The administration are bad, according to doctors, because they're trying to keep the costs down. They're trying to, help as many patients as they can with the least amount of money. And so they're always kind of trying to keep track of that. And the doctors are always like, hey, let's just do this. Let's treat everybody and make everybody healthy and stuff. So it's very much like how I think people think of politically, how people think of medicine, and how broken it is, where the administration is one way and the doctors are one way. So it's kind of interesting anyway. But the muscle-bound guy, he's like snaps his restraints. He's like, hey, as long as you know, I'm staying here of my own free will. So the doctor's talking to the administration, and the administration doesn't want the big muscle-bound guy to go because he's an anomaly, and they want to treat him, and they want to study him, and they want to research him, but they don't really have his best interest at heart, which is what the doctor is really complaining about. And then the entity from before with the arms comes out of the doctor, and this is super Doom Patrol. What's his name? I can't even remember his name. But I'm going to go over an issue that has the entity in the Doom Patrol. It's my favorite issue of the Doom Patrol. It's really fantastic, and maybe I'll do that next week. Go over that issue because it's really fantastic. And I love the TV show, and I love the Grant Morrison run of Doom Patrol. I haven't read what's his name, the singer of what's that group? The one that did the that other Netflix show. Anyway, I'm gonna go over that at some point. The Spectre or whatever it's called. But the doctor, the Spectre guy, is going to attack the administrator. The doctor says no, and the administrator is like, "This, your days are numbered here, Buster." So because he yells at, apparently the doctor yelled at the spectral Spectre, but he wasn't yelling at the administrator, but the administrator thinks he is. So it just causes more conflict. So he's home. I don't know if he's put on leave or he's worried about this creature that's coming out of him, this weird metaphysical creature, and he's worried about him. So I think he just stays home, and he sees this advertisement for and I'll read it because this was really a big thing. I think that was part of the advertising promotion for the new universe was this whole thing. And it says, have strange things been happening to you lately? Has your own body become stranger to you? Have you suddenly acquired unusual talents or disabilities? When no one can help you, we can, the Clinic for Paranormal Research. Call toll free 1-800-555-NORM. I wonder how many people called that. It's probably just some dude's number now that keeps getting calls. Hello? Yes, I have these paranormal problems. I need help. And yeah, so anyway, he calls the clinic. He gets a little bit of information and he falls asleep. The specter leaves his body, and because he's thinking about whether or not he should go to the clinic by himself or he should take the muscle-bound guy with him, because they're not really friends yet. They're just kind of, the doctor wants to help him, but he just doesn't know. So the specter creature goes to him to the hospital, and whenever he puts his hands up on him, he relays the information that he's seen. And so the muscle-bound guy is like, I'm coming with you. So he breaks out of the hospital, goes to find the doctor, and they decide to go to this clinic, this unknown weird clinic that they think is going to help them with their disabilities or their paranormal abilities or whatever it is. So they kind of just shyly go in. It's hard to have this huge guy not being so out there or whatever, but they try their best, and their secretary is taken aback, but she's seen this kind of weird stuff, so she's like giving them the forms and trying to get in there. They're not using their real names. They're still wary of this clinic, and they finally meet one of the doctors, and the doctor is talking about what the clinic is and how it can help them. She talks about other people that already have powers, that have already become part of the clinic. And she just talks about how there's a gymnasium where many of our patients spend their free time. The routine here is simple. You'll be thoroughly tested to see if your paranormal abilities are what you think they are. If so, you'll be placed in a therapy group composed of other paranormals who will help you get in touch with your feelings about your gifts. You'll also receive individual counsel and instruction, and in between all that, you can use our facilities to have fun and get healthy. So it's like a health spa or whatever, where they just are tested and stuff, and they have a really good time. They go to this group and they meet the rest of the DP7, and they all have different powers. One's a super speedster, one is like can stick to things or makes things super slippery. One's a healer. So it's really a it's a superhero team. They're melding into a superhero team, but they're not calling it that. So the super speedster talks about how when he first got his powers, the only way to get any kind of relief was to run as fast as he could. So he's out racing cars and stuff. And so they're saying, how fast is he? So he switches chairs with the girl and the big muscle bound guy, and he gets mad and he smushes the chair. He's like, this could be your head. They talk to this guy who kind of looks like Rusty from X Factor, but he disintegrates things, whatever it is. But it focuses mainly in his hands, but it's also all over his body. So like pants and t-shirts and stuff fall off of his body eventually because it just gets disintegrated. And they finally talk to the old lady. There's an old lady who's all in purple, and she's has a calming effect she has a calming effect on the speedster, so he can just chill out. And then finally there's the healers, who's like a housewife, and her husband dumped her there because he didn't want anything weird about it. So that's very kind of modern politics to me. But she's a healer. She helps the muscle-bound guy because he's always in pain because there's more muscles growing always. So some of these, like the art, like I said before, there's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of exposition, there's a lot of plot going on, just a lot of writing, a lot of reading, and it's not pleasant. It's good to have all of this writing and to find out about these characters and all of that stuff, because it's not superfluous stuff. It's really intertwined with the characters. It's intertwined with the story. It explains a lot of the stuff, and it really, it's enjoyable to read because it's well written. It's not like, Todd McFarlane in Spawn with a whole bunch of hooey stuff that doesn't really have to do with anything. It's just like him trying to wax poetic. And these guys, this Mark Grunwald, he's not trying to wax poetic. He's just trying to relay information. So that's always good. If this was written by Alan Moore, a truly masterful person, or Neil Gaiman, or Frank Miller, or whatever, it's really a true master of the comic book writing prose, it would be something really truly spectacular. And but it is what it is. Relaying information. It's enjoyable. It's you understand everything. The artist, Ryan, he could have these panels here, these pictures here, this montage here could have been so fantastic, and it is good. You understand what she's doing to him. You understand he's running his bike and he's getting some rest, and they're having a birthday and whatever, and so they're kind of becoming friends and stuff. And it just really could have been so much more. It could have been really three-dimensional. His arm could have been out there, and she could have just been like healing it, and like these special effects and stuff. It really was a missed opportunity at doing something especially great. But like I said, it's perfectly okay too. So then the doctor and the muscle-bound guy are talking about their time at the clinic, and the muscle-bound guy says like exercising helps his pain of his muscles as they're coming in, but they're just not enough. There's not enough weights or whatever. And so, but the doctor, he always has some sort of questions or whatever about the clinic. And so he goes to the oldest member, who is the old lady who has the calming effect. And she's just saying that, yeah, it is a nice place, but there's some weird things going on at the same time. The doctor falls asleep, and his entity just kind of leaves. And because he's having some weird thoughts about the clinic as well. And the entity kind of spies on these people who are keeping tabs on everybody in the clinic, all of the patients, and because there's like their rooms are bugged and they have cameras on them and everything, but they didn't know that, of course. And he's seeing all this stuff, and I think they actually see him. They find out that he's looking in and paying attention to stuff. They're talking about some of the bad things that they're going to do, especially to the doctor, because he's always wary of everything in the clinic. So they kind of want to put him in his place. And one of them is saying that he wants to put him in not isolation. I think he wants to give him a disease or something and put him out of commission. And so the entity hears and sees all this stuff and tries to get out of there and keep him from doing all of this bad stuff to the doctor. And so the entity returns to the doctor's room, gives him all of this information. He sends him off. The doctor sends him off to tell everybody else in the group, the DP7 group, what's going on. And he tells them at first, they're like, hey, I don't believe this. But then they say the entity never lies. He always just relays the information that he's seen. So eventually they do kind of believe him. And they come into contact with the orderly, who has powers himself. He has like the power to control the nervous system. Like he could give you muscle spasms or hiccups or sneezing or stop your heart or anything like that. So he's kind of a dangerous guy. And he's knocked out somebody the doctor. He's knocked out the doctor, and he's taking him to somewhere to be like put into a box or whatever. But the rest of the DP7, they're in on it. They're discussing whether or not to believe it. And one of them is like, hey, let's just return to our rooms and we'll talk to the management afterwards. But the muscle-bound guy and some of the other people are just really incredulous about it. And so when the orderlies come by, they have guns. And it really scares the DP7 crew, and they use their powers to get away from them, as you see here, using their their slippery powers, their strength, and whatever their super speed, and they get out of the clinic as best they can. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's very much like the last book that I reviewed, the A Distant Soil. So very much the same kind of thing, only that was, of course, that's more of a psychiatric ward that they were escaping from, and it was just the two of them. But this is basically the same thing, where it's a hospital that they're escaping from. So it's basically the same kind of story. And there was a TV show, I'm trying to remember the TV show, if any of you guys remember it, that came out in the 80s, where they had superpowers, and they did the exactly same thing, where they escaped from the clinic or whatever. I'm trying to remember the TV show that it was. So if any of you guys remember, let me know, because I kind of want to go back and watch it and see what it was like. In my mind, I was 86. I was only 15. So in my mind, it was like a really cool thing, but I don't think it really was, because it never really went past, I don't think, one season or whatever. So that orderly, again, he's using his powers to bring down the DP7, and finally the astral projection or whatever it is kind of attacks him or whatever, and the big muscle bound guy just smacks him, knocks him out. All of his powers are not inactive when he's knocked out or whatever, so they stop being sick or whatever. And I'm saying whatever a lot, and I'm sorry. And so they escape from the clinic, and that is the end of the issue. So I really enjoyed this when I first read it. I enjoyed it when I just read it. I read it half an hour or so ago, right before this review, and I kind of did enjoy it. I like this. This is super Love and Rockets. I don't know if the Love and Rockets got it from this. This is 86. I think Love and Rockets was actually out before this. And so I kind of think that this is either an homage to the first Love and Rockets cover, or it's just, it could be a coincidence. It probably is very much a coincidence that this was, because this is a standard, they're in front of a police lineup or whatever, and they're holding it. So it's pretty basic. So I really enjoyed it. I like the characters. I can't remember what their names are now. Didn't really love the art. Even then, I was very much like this Paul Ryan guy. When I watched Red Thor, I was really not into it. I didn't love it, didn't hate it. Again, it serves the story. It's his art is a slave to the story, and really that's how it should be. But you can also flare up your art for the story, and make it as best as you can. So really, that's what you want to do. So I did enjoy it. I'm going to give this a review of a. I'm going to give it a review of a 7. I probably have more DP7 than any of the other New Universe comics. I have maybe up to 16 or 17 or something like that, and I think it went to maybe 20 or something. But I'm not going to pick up any more DP7. Even in the dollar bin, I'm just not going to do it, because I'm not that interested in the story. And I'm not going to reread issue 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever, which I already have. It's just not that cool. I don't want them to bring DP7 back as a New Universe Ultimates crossover thing. Starbrand is probably, or maybe Justice and Starbrand are probably the only things that I would pick up if they redid it, rebrought it out and stuff. But I'm not really into it, so I'm going to give it a 7. That's really my baseline, as you guys know. If I'm not willing to go look for it, which you can get this at eBay for like $3 or $4 by itself, and this is an old comic, 86, so that's like 30 years ago. So that's a pretty old comic, and it's only $3 or $4, which a lot of comics are. There's really not a whole lot of, unless like they're key issues or something like that. There's a lot of comics out there that are just really not worth a lot of money, and it's really too bad. It's too bad, and it makes me sad. So DP7's getting a 7, which ironically, and I did enjoy it, but I'm not going to go get more. And so if you have just stumbled upon the channel and you did like DP7, let me know. I really love to hear you guys' comments about the comics. You guys seem to like the New Universe reviews that I'm doing, or that I have done. I'm thinking that's because there's a lot of you out there that still read comics or still enjoy comics, and you maybe picked up comic books. This may have been the era that you picked up comics, and so you're liking the stuff from this era, and maybe this is one of the things. You probably have a whole bunch of these comics in your you probably have a whole lot of comics like this in your collection that are just, throwaway comics that you don't think about, and yet you read them when you first started getting into comics, and so you might have a soft spot in your heart. That's me in particular. This is when I started getting into comic books, and this is when it was, going into my mind and seeping into my soul for the whole comic book thing. So let me know if you read DP7. How many of the other titles did you guys read? Did you guys enjoy? Did you pick up a few, some they really liked, but then you picked up some that you just picked them up because you went to the comic book store and there maybe wasn't anything there on that week that you really enjoyed, so you picked up Kickers Inc. or whatever, Spitfire, which are the couple of those that I'm going to be going through. But so let me know. I love to hear your comments. As you know, I love to talk about comic books. That's what I'm here for, and that's what I love to do. So if you're new to the channel, usually I go over black and white indie comics from the 70s, 80s, 90s. But I also look over weird, Marvel and DC stuff that I just kind of enjoy and like, and want to talk about. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you think this review of 7 is a good review, or think it should go less or more. I would really love to hear that too. So have a great week. This is Monday, so that you've got a bunch more videos coming up in the week. And as always, I love doing them. And like always, keep on creating.